Meanwhile, the heads of Nordic and Baltic governments are meeting over the next 2 days to discuss transatlantic relations and regional security. They'll also discuss support for Ukraine. A special guest is Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, whose country will soon take over the European Council presidency. He's viewed by some as a potential new regional power broker.
A former top official of the European Union, Donald Tusk knows what it's like to be at the center of decision-making in Brussels. Now he wants Warsaw's views to carry more weight, especially when it comes to Ukraine policy. The traditional EU power couple of France and Germany hasn't been united on supporting Kyiv, providing an opening for other countries to show leadership.
We need unity, of course, but it cannot be anymore the unity, of the slowest moving kind of vessel in this convoy.
Tusk wants unity, too, in the form of a coalition of like-minded countries that believe supporting Ukraine is crucial for their own security and that no decisions should be made without Kyiv.
Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. I have taken efforts to mobilize prime ministers and presidents of the EU member states in order to make it an ironclad principle.
The Nordic and Baltic nations have invited Tusk to attend their meeting because they have a lot in common. They're close to Europe's front line, they invest heavily in their own militaries, and they've potentially got the most to lose if Russia wins the war. As a percentage of its GDP, Poland outspends the others and even the US on defense at well over 4%. This may be a useful trump card for Tusk come January, with the inauguration of a U.S. president obsessed with Europe assuming a greater financial responsibility for collective defense.
The task for Tusk is tough, but I think Poland has the credibility because it's walking the walk. It's not just talking.
But when it comes to talking, difficult conversations lie ahead for the two Donalds. Tusk has criticized Trump in the past, harshly and publicly, and they're likely to clash over aid for Ukraine. The possibility of a drastic cut in U.S. assistance has sparked a campaign calling on European NATO allies and Canada to boost their own support for Kyiv. The recommendations making the rounds in foreign policy circles applaud Tusk's assertive approach.
Seize the Russian assets, extend air defense into western Ukraine and use it to cover ground troops doing non-combat tasks there, provide Ukraine with a safe path into NATO by extending real security guarantees, and stand up for ourselves. On all of those fronts, Poland has been at the forefront of developments so far.
While many may be looking forward to Warsaw having more influence in Europe, the rise of Donald Tusk is also bound to meet resistance, especially from Europe's traditional power base, which has appeared more comfortable with leading a coalition of the waiting than a coalition of the willing.
Let's pick up that with Gustav Gressel, who's a military and security expert at the National Defence Academy in Vienna. Welcome to DW. Are we seeing a split emerging amongst Ukraine's European allies between those who think they should be doing more and those who want to just wait and see what the United States is doing?
It's not a complete split, yes, but Europe is definitely walking in two different speeds. You have the Nordic and Baltic countries, who by now already are the biggest donators in terms of their GDP share, and who also now diplomatically form the kind of policy Europe should present towards Donald Trump. On the other hand, you have other Europeans, the Germans in particular, who just want to wait and see what Trump actually proposes and then make up their mind as things go along.
And we saw there in the report Poland pretty much outspending everyone in Europe at 4% of their GDP. Regardless of what Mr. Tusk says and Poland's assumption of the EU's rotating presidency in January, how influential can Poland be when it comes to rallying European support for Ukraine?
Well, the problem for Poland right now is that the biggest country in Europe is going through an election campaign and has not really been receptive for forward-leaning proposals on Ukraine. Whether they're French or Polish doesn't matter. Tusk will is therefore liaising with his close-minded and then trying to persuade as many European countries on the way. And well, we'll see how long it goes. However, I have to say that if you look back into Trump 1, the idea in principle to confront them with prefabricated ideas is not a bad one. As the Trump campaign on Ukraine, their ideas are very thin. And the earlier you start to influence them and try to steer them into the right direction, the proper you go. If you wait for them to consolidate quite strange ideas, then you might have a harder day, just for the diplomatic sphere. And last but not least, there is still a PiS president who also talks a lot to Donald Trump. And so Poland as a country, not only Tusk as a person or the civic platform as a party, has some role to play here.
OK. So, as the world and Ukraine await a new Trump presidency, how do you see the parties to this war positioning themselves for the return of a Trump White House in January? What are we looking out for? What are you seeing?
Well, the Russians try to press on the offensive as hard as they can. Despite horrific losses, they try to put as much pressure as they can and gain as much territory as they can to have the best position once talks with the Americans commence. Ukrainians, in the meantime, first of all, try to deny the Russian as much territory as they can, and they diplomatically reach out to people in the US administration, in the Republican Party. Unfortunately, usually receptive to that are traditional Republicans who don't wait much in the current Trump administration. But nevertheless, that's the plan so far from Kiev.
OK. So now we have, over the next 2 days, heads of government of Nordic and Baltic countries meeting to discuss transatlantic relations and regional security. And as you say, these are the more hawkish, if I can put it that way, elements within Europe when it comes to dealing with Russia. If you were able to make your pitch to them about European security in a time of Trump and war in Ukraine, what would it be?
Well, first, they can market their position of being strong spenders on defense and having very close relationship with US defense industry. That's something that flatters Trump. And it's true for their part. The second thing is, of course, we need for Ukraine a lot of American goods that cannot be subsidized by European production because we are late in ramping up production. And somebody needs to get into negotiations with the Americans to either continue American supply or to buy these goods on European money. And here, of course, the Nordic, Baltic and Poland are in a better position to negotiate this than others. The big thing, of course, the big question mark is, can they also persuade, for example, the other European countries to agree on a common funding mechanism for this part? This would be crucial for Ukraine to have a continuous and plannable supply of military goods. Ukrainian generals cannot plan a war if they don't know what's going to be the munition for next month.
Thank you so much for talking us through that so clearly. Gustav Gressel, from the European Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.